We better get on to that. Could I have Martin Meehan from Hands Off Hagley, thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, who's your friend?
I found him on the street.
He's the brains, I'm the mouth.
Welcome, both of you. It's
you
nice
very
to see you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You know that I hate that.
Yes, exactly. I know how to put the needle in. Thank you for an opportunity. I'm here representing Hands Off Hagley. And we, like Mr Yaxley before me, are aware of the financial straits of the council, so we would like to point out where there are a few opportunities for the councillors to have a look. I think it's important to put things into perspective. Under the proposed changes in the city plan, there's a proposed increase of $1 per hydroslide for a child from $5 to $6, which we would completely agree with. So if a child bought a hydroslide ticket for 7 days, as my compulsive kids would have required, that's $42 a week. Canterbury Cricket pays $27 per week rent on the Hagley Oval, less than a cup of coffee a day. So why do we subsidise professional sport when we're removing subsidies from our disadvantaged and less influential citizens? So far, Christchurch City Council spent $3 million on developing Hagley Oval to ICC specifications. And where does that spending stop? If you look buried in your Metro Sports plan, you will find a line temporary seating. I suspect you are buying the seats for the new stadium. There's a $300,000 annual cost of maintaining the oval over 10 years. That is $3 million, which should not be a charge on ratepayers. The City Council doesn't pay for or maintain the netball courts at Hagley Park. In fact, netball even maintains their own gardens around their building. The Hagley Golf Club are responsible for and pay for groundkeeping of the golf course. Christ's College pay a peppercorn rent of $1 for the use of their grounds in Hagley. In return, they maintain them at no cost to the council and make them available for school and sports events. Meanwhile, a professional sport that generates millions of dollars receives corporate welfare. In order to put the $1,200 annual lease into perspective, the going rate for the daily hire of the netball centre or the horticultural building is $1,200 per day. The bid for the World Cup proposed that the $14 million costs of providing goods and services will be met by the local organising committee. This committee is described as being made up of CCC and other stakeholders. Would it be prudent for the council to inquire who the other stakeholders might be and what they are bringing to the party? In the World Cup proposal, the hire of the oval for the games is put at $30,000 per game donated by CCC. I hope the intention is to charge this to the cricket after the World Cup. For example, for an international game, crowd of 18,000 paying $20 each would give a revenue to cricket of $360,000. A $30,000 hire is less than 10% when the average rents are around about 15% of turnover. And finally, in the Environment Court decision, the judge imposed 92 conditions of these relating to the holding of the games at the Oval. These include noise control, traffic movement management, temporary structures and parking. All of these need council permits and supervision. We would like an assurance that these costs to the council will be met for by the user just as we would when we apply for a building consent and not by ordinary ratepayers. Thank you.
questions?
I think you'll find there's a lot of money buried in your books.
I think there might be a contract that's signed by people who were here before I was. Ref.
Yeah, Gary, thanks for that. That $300,000 a year cost to maintain the oval, you're saying that currently is a council obligation?
Yes.
As I understand it.
And was that part of that original contract?
I have no idea.
Is that well known, or is that...
I'm very critical of your original contract, and I don't think it was actually. I think the public were duped.
Yeah, because I was under the impression that wasn't actually costing us any money.
Well, it might be worthwhile going and having a look to make sure it doesn't.
I've just asked the question whether the original contract was ever released, so I don't know that if it's in the public arena or not.
It might be a good
Yana,
idea.
you're the source of all knowledge and information on these matters.
I'm not. Are you talking about the lease, or are you talking about the contract?
The contract for the Cricket World Cup.
Right. I haven't seen that document. So
Okay.
That's a 10-year.
the lease was delegated to the chief.
The lease has got. The lease isn't the issue. The lease is the lease is built on what was agreed in the signed contract between.
So I haven't
the
seen
city
it, but I don't think
council.
elected members have seen the signed contract.
Okay, so
It's slightly ironic, isn't it, Madam Mayor, that the city is bound by something that a councillor that was at the table hadn't read.
well, that's true of the cost share agreement as well. It's the way life is, and it may not be life as we want it, but it is life the way it is. So what I'm going to undertake to do as a result of your submission today is to establish whether we are able to release that original document, because I think it would be informative and would enable people to see exactly what's been agreed to, because the lease agreement was absolutely required as part of the agreement, and there was nothing that would stand in the way of the chief executive signing it. I know because she got my approval to sign it before she did, and she was under a legal obligation to sign it once all the conditions were met. Tim?
Gary, can I have a copy of your notes there, just so I can, because my memory's not that good and my handwriting's not that fast. I'd really, if it's possible, that'd be great. Thank you. Cheers.
That would be good.
A question. I don't know how closely you've been following the domestic cricket debate about becoming privatised as well. Is there any comment that you would wish to make in that regard in terms of things we should be watching for? It does seem quite extraordinary that we've given public security of that asset, of the land that the pavilion sits on, as a private sort of security to Canterbury cricket. But any comment on the future of privatised cricket, or concerns we should be looking at in terms of protecting our assets?
Well, it does seem strange that Canterbury Cricket are proposing to sell a 49% holding in cricket, and the ratepayers are subsidising this. And going back to the $300,000 annual fees, or the upkeep, I note that in the World Cup agreement, the World Cup proposal, the council have agreed to pay all the fees, $100,000 per annum for the head groundsman, this, that and the other. But I think that only extends as far as the World Cup. Beyond the World Cup, I'm sure you can have a look at that. And I think particularly if cricket are able to attract private sponsors, then surely we should be charging them at normal rates. We shouldn't be carrying that. The normal citizen shouldn't be supporting those.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Food for thought there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you both. And